What's up, BookTube? It's Leah Cooper, and today I'm bringing you, I guess, my number one reading challenge for 2020, and that is the 20 books I plan to read in 2020. Let me set some of these down. I didn't even get all of them in the picture. I only held up like half of the books because there's no way I could hold 20 books. So when I was making this list, I think there's a couple of different ways you can kind of go about making one of these X books to read in a year, and it could be like books you've had for a really long time that you want to get off your shelf, or maybe books you're super excited for, or something. A quarter of these books are things I'm pretty excited for. Half of them are things that have been on my shelf for a really long time, and I'm not sure if I'll actually enjoy them. So like, they actually have notes in the list because I made a list in my little notebook. Half of them are just things that I feel like they've been on my shelf so long, I need to either read them and just finally read them, or read them, realize they're not for me, and just DNF them and get rid of them, unhaul them basically. So, and then the other like quarter of this list is books that I've been meaning to read for a while, but that are kind of intimidating. So I do have several 500-page books on this list, and that's the reason why. And I'm doing that on purpose because I do want to challenge myself to try to get through some of those big books, because big books are always intimidating to me. We will start with the obvious, and that is Sense and Sensibility. This has been on my TBR for like 3 years, and I've got to get this book read because I really want to do a month where I do nothing but like read Jane Austen, adaptations, spin-offs, inspired bys, etc. Because the next book on this 20 books to read this year is finally the Jane Austen book club. I have a soft spot for this movie, and I really just want to read the book, but I don't want to read the book until I finish doing my complete Jane Austen reread. They're not the first two things I'm going to read in 2020, but these are the first two books on my list of 20 books to read. Start stacking stuff behind me. The next thing on my list of books is a book that I bought brand new, and I know I'm probably going to love. I just haven't gotten around to reading it, and that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I bought this shortly after it came out in 2018. I love Uprooted. I love Naomi Novik's writing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy this. I think a part of me is worried I'm not going to like it as much as Uprooted, but that's silly because I don't have to like it as much as that. I just have to enjoy it, and I know I'm going to. I hate buying brand new full price hardcover books. $28 for this, and then having it set on my shelves unread because I do have a habit of doing that. Ugh, it's so bad. So this is next. And then kind of along the same lines is this copy of In the Cities, ooh, I should probably take this sticker off. In the City of Coins and Spice by Catherine M. Valente. This is the second book in, I don't know what this is called, The Orphans Tales. It's called The Orphans Tales, and it's a duology. The first one is In the Night Garden. I read that a couple of years ago when I was reading sort of like everything by Valente, and I really liked it. I liked it a lot. It's sort of a riff on 1001 Arabian Nights, where it's about tales within tales within tales. It was so good. So I had this transferred down from one of our Seattle stores. And it's also one that's just over 500 pages. So I could read this for like a tome topple. And I know I'm going to enjoy this just based off of how much I enjoyed the first one. And since I did special order it for myself, I want to get it read. Kind of along the same lines as Spinning Silver. The next two things on my list are rereads. So the first one is Martin the Warrior by Bride Jakes. This is a book in the Redwall series. I read this as a kid. This was always my favorite Redwall book. It was also the first one I ever read. I want to start rereading some Redwall books just to refresh my memory, just to see if they're as good as I remember, because it's kind of like my ongoing project of ruining my childhood in some ways by reading childhood favorites and then being disappointed and sometimes not disappointed. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the case with these. So I do kind of want to kick that project, the Redwall reread, off this year by at least reading Martin the Warrior. And then the other thing I want to reread is continuing my Star Wars X-Wing novel reread. I want to at least reread book 3 in this series, which is the Kratos Trap, and I would like to get to number 4, though this is not on my 20 books to read in 2020 list. So only this one's on the list, but I would like to get to both this year. Okay, then the next thing is a book I'm fairly excited to read. I just haven't quite been in the mood to read it. I've almost picked it up a couple of times. But that is the Camelot Caper by Elizabeth Peters. I bought a ton of Elizabeth Peters books from work when they came in. This is not her Archaeology Egypt series. This is another series with Vicky Bliss as the protagonist. And I have not read this protagonist. This is the prequel book to the Vicky Bliss series. So I want to read this since I bought so many of them. And I want to see how I like it. Then the next two books are books I've had for a while that I'm not sure I'm going to like. And so I just want to read them to either discover if I like them or to go ahead and unhaul them. The first one of those is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Is that how you say her name? Gillian Flynn? Everyone knows what this is about. Most people have read this. I do really enjoy the movie. I think it's pretty good. I've wanted to read the book for ages, since before the movie came out. I thought it sounded interesting. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if I'm going to like the author's writing style, because I am interested in some of her other books too. So I gotta just try to read this. And man, picking it up, it's like 400 pages. I did not realize how long this was. I don't read thrillers super often, so I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. But I'm challenging myself this year to get it read, either enjoy it or get it off my shelf. In that same vein, I've got this first Maisie Dobbs mystery by Jacqueline Winspear. I remember the big-haired bookworm was reading these, maybe. That's how I found out about them. And she enjoyed them, I think. It takes place in the spring of 1929. And I think Maisie might have worked as a nurse during World War I, maybe? I might be wrong about that. But now I think she does the whole, like, lady private detective type thing. So that does have the makings of all the sort of stuff I could like. I did try reading this once, and I think I got through a chapter and I wasn't enjoying it, so I decided to put it down and read other stuff because I was thinking, maybe I'm just not in the mood. So that means I'm going to challenge myself to actually get this read, because I have owned this for a while. It's been on my shelf for a while. So I'm going to see if I like it, keep it, collect the rest, or unhaul. And then the next book is another book I got new. It was actually part of a book box my sister got me for my birthday last year. So I've had it for 16 months now, and that is The Death of Mrs. Westaway. The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is obviously quite a popular thriller writer, especially in like the Goodreads community. I know she's been in like the top finalists for thrillers, Goodreads Choice Awards, a couple years in a row now. And I've also heard that this one of her books is really good. Like, people seem to really enjoy this one. And since it was a gift, I do want to get to it. I don't want it to just have it languishing forever. And I want to know if I like her books, because we do get her books occasionally. So I'd like to know, should I be on the lookout? Should I get any of her other books? Okay, so now we're going to get into the long/intimidating portion of this list. First one is, we're going to go with intimidating, and that is The Three Body Problem by Sixon Liu. This is not I always think this is over 500 pages, but it's not. It's barely over 400 pages. It's just a huge trade paperback. It's like the size of a hardcover. Anyway, this is hard science fiction translated from the Chinese by Ken Liu. I don't really know what it's about, but I do know it's won a Hugo Award. It's won a bunch of awards. People have a lot of good and bad things to say about it. Either it's really, really liked, or people think it's boring, but I want to give it a go. And I might try to read it sooner rather than later, because I have been on a sci-fi kick. Anytime I pay like more than $2 for a book and then it languishes sitting around collecting dust, it's bad. Okay, another one of those intimidating books is Life After Life by Atkinson. This is another one where I'm not sure I'm going to like it. I picked it up because I picked it up a year or two ago, back when I was watching more literary fiction booktube, and people who really love Kate Atkinson and specifically love this one. And, you know, I saw it for like $3 at the place I now work, though I bought it long before I worked there. I picked it up, and I'm not sure I'm going to like it, but I need to at least give it a try. It is over 500 pages, right? Yeah, like just barely over 500 pages. So again, could be a good tome topple book to try to read, just to see if I like it. I'm giving myself permission, if I don't like it, to just go ahead and DNF it and unhaul it. But it's been collecting dust, and I need to try it, pass it along. I'm gonna have to peel this sticker off too. I usually don't bother peeling stickers off, but some of these have my place of work like written on them, and I do try to keep that name out of my videos because it's against company policy. So anyways, the next thing on my list to read is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I've wanted to read this since it came out, and I've had it on my shelf for a couple of years now. For a while, I was holding off reading it because I wanted to reread Dracula, which I did. Oh God, and that was an ordeal. And I think I was so burned out after reading that book because I really didn't like it on reread. I was too exhausted to try to pick this up because this is a chunker. This is a 670-ish page book, so another great option for tome topple. But so this is very intimidating to pick up, but I gotta read it before my memory of Dracula fades too much, and I gotta find out if I like it, if I like Elizabeth Kostova's writing or not, because I'm definitely still interested in this. I don't think I'll wait till Halloween, because I feel like waiting to Halloween to read all of my spooky books puts way too much pressure, and I end up with way too many books I could read in October that I don't get to any of them. Okay, next thing, again, so this is just over 500 pages and an intimidating read, Cloud Atlas by... Another sticker. Oh no, this one's not peeling off. Come on. So the next thing is Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I love the movie Cloud Atlas, and I have wanted to read the book ever since I read the movie. I do think it's going to be my kind of weird, because it is a bit weird, but it's big, and I've heard it's an intimidating book to follow, but I do think I'm going to like it. This might even be on a 5-star predictions video, and I just need to bite the bullet and read it. Also, I think the cover is absolutely gorgeous. The next thing is not an intimidating book per se, but it is long. It's over 500 pages, and that is The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest by Stieg Larsson. I freaking love Stieg Larsson. I read both of the first 2 books. Love them. Love the movie, both versions of the movie. And I just haven't read the third one. And I don't know, I guess it's mostly because it's just so long and it's tough to compel myself to pick it up. But I know I'm going to like this, so I need to just freaking read it, and that way I can say I've read the trilogy. So that's why it's on this list. Okay, next day editing Leah, filming again on her MacBook face cam, which is garbage. I completely forgot to talk about one of the books of the 20 books, and that's because it's actually an ebook. It's the only ebook on this list, and that is Burned by Magic by Jasmine Walt. I've had this as an ebook for a while, and I had this because Jasmine Walt did something with, she self-published this, and, the way she self-published it and marketed it, and with the cover art, somehow, took the, paranormal self-publishing market by storm when it was released. She made a crap ton of money, and I've always just really wanted to read this book to kind of see what she was doing with it. I did try to read it once before, and I couldn't get into it, but I just kind of set it down after the first chapter. So my goal this year is to give it more of a go, try to get to maybe page 100, DNF it then if it's not good, or read it, and just kind of see what on earth she was writing that sold so well. That's getting scary. And then these last 2 books are on here because they're both chunkers and intimidating. First one is Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. This has been making the rounds on BookTube lately because a couple of big booktubers have read it. It is fantasy. That's all I know. And it's part of a series. And my copy is actually only 550 pages. And it's a real beat up copy, but I got it for 12 cents. So who cares, right? I'm putting it on this list not only to challenge myself to get around to it so it doesn't sit on my shelves for years because it's 500 pages, but also because I bought it this year, and I am trying to get myself to not only read the stuff that's been languishing on my shelves for years, but also to read my impulse buys sooner after I impulsively purchase them. And this was an impulse buy because I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't necessarily have the same taste as the booktubers who have been loving this. I do think it's one of those kind of classic romantic fantasies by a woman author, blurred by Anne McCaffrey, and kind of, I think it's from the 90s, right? Oh, copyright 2000, so it fits into my reading older books, which is, something I want to continue to do, discover new authors, try them out. If I don't like it, I do have permission to just DNF this and get rid of it and to unhaul it. Okay, second to last book on my list is one that's been languishing for a while. That is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This was a popular book several years ago when it came out. That's why I purchased it, because like so many people were exclaiming about it, and I think I got it around the same time that like the series came out. It is just over 1,000 pages, which is terrifying. I have it in this mass market edition, which is like a door stopper, and the font, you probably can't tell on camera, but the font is minuscule. It's gonna take me forever to read this, so it's very scary to do that, and that's why I've had it for a couple of years. I bought this from the store I now work at like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just haven't read it. I did, luckily, I think only pay 25 cents for it, which is good. But yeah, I gotta try it. I gotta find out if it's worth the hype, if it's my thing. Just looking at it makes my eyes hurt. The font is so small. It's possible I should just buy a bigger copy, but then I'd have to lug a huge hardcover around. There's 2 stacks. This is also part of this. Okay, the last book of my 20 books to read in 2020 is nonfiction. And I was originally going to put 2 nonfiction books on here, but I decided to just go with one. I'm really bad about reading nonfiction, and that's why this is on here, because I've been buying some nonfiction, and I need to read this stuff for book projects that I want to write, but I'm never going to get around to it unless I, like, keep myself accountable. So the book I've put on my list to read this year is A World Lit Only by Fire, The Medieval Mind and the Renaissance, Portrait of an Age by William Manchester. Some of the reason I picked this one, it's relatively short. It's barely 300 pages. I do think it's kind of an overview of a lot of stuff. History, some religion. There's a section on the medieval mind. I think it'd be really a good place to start without being too intimidating or take too long to read. So this is the ridiculous situation I find myself in, having to record 2 editing notes because I missed 2 books for this list. Actually, and this last one, after I shut off the camera when I recorded the main video, I realized that I had not talked about this book. And so I sat back down and I talked about it, and I thought I recorded it, but apparently I didn't. The actual last book, I purchased this back. I found the receipt. It's inside the book. I paid $8 for this used copy back in 2017, and this would have been late September, early October 2017, because I picked this up to read for Spooktober that year. It was one of Darby's favorite books, and I think she was rereading it that year, and I love the movie, and I've always really wanted to read the book, so I like rushed out and got a copy of this. Didn't get around to reading it, and then for the last 2 Octobers, I've intended to read it. This is also crooked. There we go. I've intended to read it for October, for either like Spooktober or whatever, but various things have kept me from just picking it up at all. I have not picked it up. So this is also on my list. I'm probably going to try to get to it before October, just because I don't trust myself to save it for October and actually get to it, because I've been so bad at doing that. That's the final book. Thanks for watching. So those are all 20 books I plan on reading this year that I'm challenging myself to try or unhaul. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you're thinking about picking any of them up. I've got them all written down in my little notebook, and I can't wait to start crossing them off. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.